Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I just had to make sure it was still morning everywhere, but it is. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our special edition Empower panel. Be your own hero. And I'll tell you why it's a special edition in just one second. But first, I want to start off by welcoming everyone to our Empower panel. We are 911 Wonder Women, and we are a nonprofit organization with a mission to provide mentorship, education, networking to women in 911 and have been doing so for about 3 years now. So, our Empower panels are one of our favorite programs because we like to bring women together in the 911 profession and talk about things that maybe aren't talked about quite enough. So, we like to take on different kinds of issues from the normal panel sessions that you might see or hear. Also, exciting news, we now have a YouTube channel where you can go and check out every single Empower panel that we have ever done, which is exciting. And also, we are now available as a podcast. So you can take us with you wherever you go. I like to listen while I'm folding laundry and doing the dishes because I hate both of those things. And I find that listening to awesome women speak just helps me through that process a little bit better. So, thank you again for joining. Thank you, Kimber, for putting our link to Spotify in the comments because I meant to do that and I couldn't find it. If you are listening to this later, we do have a live audience here with us on Crowdcast. So, we'll be chatting with the folks in the audience as we go, and we'll try to remember to read their questions before we answer it. If you are live with us, you can interact with us via the chat. And then also, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A feature, and you can submit questions to us that way as well. So, my name is Sara Weston. I'm the founder and executive director of 911 Wonder Women, and we are calling this a special edition because one of the initiatives we've recently taken on is the idea that not all 911 Wonder Women wear headsets. And what I mean by that is there are so many women out there in the 911 community who don't necessarily sit where you sit or take 911 calls or have ever taken a 911 call. I speak for for myself, and I'll have these other incredible women introduce themselves in a second. But the reason why this is so important to our industry is while women in dispatch are not underrepresented, they're more underrecognized, but women in technical fields that help support 911 are definitely underrepresented. And if we are out there keeping you in mind through what is being built through 911, then we're doing everyone a disservice. So that is our session for today. We have folks who are on the private side of 911 talking a little bit about issues, things that we have gone through as women, and what we've learned along the way. So, having said all of that, I'm going to introduce our incredible moderator, Samantha Hawkins, and I'm going to throw it over to you first, and then we'll have everyone else introduce themselves. So, here you go, Sam.
Awesome. Always a pleasure to be here and to moderate another great session. And for someone like me who does come from beneath the headset, this is a truly important topic because we realize that the 911 Wonder Woman community, it's not exclusive. This is about women empowering women and men of 911 and also those who support 911. And these incredible panel, these include women who support 911 technology and help us beneath the headset to be better. So I come from Marietta, Georgia, Cobb County Department of Emergency Communications. I am a CTO and training technician and proud member of the 911 Wonder Woman tribe. All right, ladies.
Okay, Lynne, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Lynne Houserman. I'm a corporate vice president at Motorola Solutions. My responsibilities include, we call it emergency call management software, and then also cloud infrastructure engineering. I should really get a much shorter title.
You have a long title.
So I've been on the telephony and software side of 911 since 2000, which is a really long time, I realized. So our portfolio, it includes both 911 call handling, so the Vesta, the CallWorks. You guys are all very familiar with this software. I think the latest stat I saw is that like 60% of 911 calls are handled by one of our 911 call handling applications. So if you love it, talk to me. If you're mad at it, it's okay. We also have NGCS, which is Next Gen Core Services. That's the network and software that routes the 911 calls to the appropriate 911 dial. And then I have cloud infrastructure engineering, which you guys have heard, I'm sure, all about moving to the cloud. Everything's going to the cloud. And so that's really just our modernization efforts to take what has previously been in the back room and offer it in a cloud environment instead. So that's, oh, and you guys are already seeing my Lennon and Brandy. Yes. So I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the chat, but yes, these are, I think, relevant to any meeting that I'm on, is both these women. So.
Oh yes, we love Glennon and Brandy so much at these parts. So Lynn, I have to tell you, I teach a basic next gen course, and I always say the cloud is just somebody else's computers.
Yeah, I think we all have a sticker that says that. There's a lot of value in the cloud. We could talk about that, but it's super boring. But yeah, it really, it's about sort of just modernization and also cost effectiveness of 911. And so we're really focused on that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sandy, please, ma'am, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandy Yokeley. I'm the CRO and Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Watson Furniture Group, which is, you're like, what's a furniture person doing on a 911 Wonder Woman call? We make the furniture that dispatchers sit at. So what we do matters, right? We want to provide the furniture that helps you do the best job that you can do. Lives depend on it. I've been in the console industry for a shorter period of time than I've been in the furniture industry. I've been in furniture for 27 years, and for the last 6 years, I've been part of Watson's console division. So I'm honored and still learning. So I'm grateful to be part of a committee or a panel with Lynne, who has years of experience, and honored to be the female representing Watson in this panel. So in my spare time, I am from North Carolina. If someone notices the accent's a little different than Washington State, where we're located, my husband and I run a ranch. So we're responsible and sustainable farmers raising beef cattle. So that's what I do for fun. I'm not into furniture.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. Oh, now I have a whole other list of questions, which
I work a whole lot.
So if you doubt how important furniture is, let me tell everyone right now, I'm at the Florida ABCO conference and did not have time to check into my room. So I'm here sitting on the floor. So I'd really appreciate some Watson furniture right now.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So
formed your environment, Sara. Good job.
Yes, we're good.
So I guess going ahead and getting started, the question to start us off is, we want to know from each of y'all, what does it mean to be your own hero? Us in the 911 world, we're used to hearing that not every hero wears a cape, and we know all about that. And we like to say, yes, some of them wear headsets, but y'all represent another side, on the private side, y'all heroes. And when you said about, Sandy, about, I'm here on this panel and I just do, ma'am, those furnitures support us and keep us going. You better believe dispatchers in their chairs go together. So going around, starting with you, Sara, what does it mean to be your own hero? What does that mean to you?
So I love how you set this up, because a lot of times in 911, we feel like we're everyone else's hero, right? Saving the
Yes.
day, whether that be the public or other first responders or whomever. So when I think of being my own hero, I think of taking some responsibility and control over what happens to me. And that everyone comes at that from a different lens, right? So for years, when I first started working, I felt like everything was out of my control. I was a young woman in an older male dominated field of technology consulting. And I just felt like I had to take everything that I was given, and I wasn't able to take control and step up and take control of my career in any way. I was waiting for somebody to come and pull me out of my situation. And when I started to make progress is when I started to reach out to other people. It can be little simple steps. So being my own hero was saying, you know what? I'm going to set this goal for myself, and I'm going to do A, B, and C. And while I might not reach the goals I set, it takes me through a different path. So I think it's just kind of that realization that I can do things for myself that will put me in a better position to get whatever it is that I want. And also realizing that, and we'll talk about mentorship later, I know, but mentors and people like that aren't in your life to save you. They're there to guide you and help you be your own hero.
Love that. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That sets the stage. That's amazing. And like, even like you said, we're always thinking in terms of saving the day for others, but saving the day for yourselves. But like you said, having that circle, and I know we are going to get into the mentorship side, having that circle of people who hold you accountable, help you to be responsible, and save the day for you sometimes. So now moving on to you, Lynne, what does it mean to be your own hero?
Yeah, so I mean, the word hero is interesting to me. It has historically been a pretty gendered word. If you think about the heroes in history have been men, and normally they are saving someone, and a lot of times they're saving a more vulnerable population, like a woman. I mean, you think about Disney, right? Like Disney heroes. So I'm not like, I think it's about reclaiming that word. I'm happy that as a society we're using hero for both men and women, and no longer using heroine, which sounds like heroin. Let's just say hero. So I'm happy to claim that word back for us. But I think of hero really about sort of defending and protecting. And then I apply those to myself. So my concept of being my own hero is, one, understanding my strengths well enough that I know when I can bring them to bear and leverage them successfully, either to the benefit of myself or someone else, right? So that's the defending. As far as the protecting side, I think it's equally as important to understand your own triggers, vulnerabilities, your non-negotiables, so that you can bring boundaries, care, grace to yourself, right? Protecting yourself, because we always hear this analogy about putting the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your, on your kids or anyone else you're traveling, your husband, anyone else you're traveling with. But it's so true. And I think I've learned that over the last 20 years, is that unless I'm protecting my own space and my own self and my own mental health, I can't give other people. So I think just learning that that's how I am my own kind of savior has meant a lot to me.
You had me at two parts when you mentioned about the non-negotiables. Oh my gosh. Going back to reclaiming that we can say no when we need to say no, when we have to say no. And also when you talked about boundaries is such protection, and something that we struggle with, especially us females, us heroes on this side. And that is a 911 on the 911 world, and y'all 911 Wonder Woman on the private side. again, on the technical side, dealing with a male dominated industry, I know that boundaries is so important, and protecting yourself and protecting, like you said, what, even the non-negotiables of, and I love that. Sandy, what do you say, ma'am? What is be your own hero means to you?
Something very different, and that's okay, right? I've learned to be okay with it, because for me, being my own hero, I am by nature a supporter. I find purpose in life helping others, and being my own hero, I get great satisfaction out of that. And it, not at my own expense, certainly, right? Still taking care of yourself, which I think we all as women have to learn how to do to some extent, because not a lot of people are going to do it for us. But it gives me that grace to be able to help others, and it gives my life purpose. And so my hero is helping others. And I've had so many help me on the way here that I feel a little bit like it's giving back, and that works for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for even bringing that perspective, that viewpoint to it, because I know there's going to be a lot of 911 Wonder Women who will say that's it. Like, okay, I understand about the boundaries and the protection and everything, but that's what empowers them. It empowers them, empowering and helping and supporting others. And the fact that you have that awareness of it, but I mean, I'm sure you've been doing it many years and doing it with mastery. I love that you tackled that. For us coming up, that realizing that be your own hero does have a different look to it. So that is incredible. Definitely awesome that we went around and discussed that. And of course, we have to acknowledge the fact that we, all of us on this panel, do come from a sense of privilege. So here's the thing. We've all, in our own right, either have established ourselves where we're at a point where we know what it is in terms, but how do other women help? How do we help them? How do they help themselves get to that point? Because Lynne, Sandy, Sara, yes, of course, we still have our struggles. And me, I'm still establishing myself too, but we're at a point where we know what it is. There's going to be those listening and saying, but how do I get to that point? So Sara, starting with you, how do they get to that point? How do they get in touch with that?
I think the first step is asking that question, just kind of knowing that it's possible. I think if you're sitting there asking, well, how can I get from A to B? That's a good sign, because you don't feel so stuck like it's impossible. You may not see the path quite yet, but knowing that it's possible is kind of step one. I think that in the age we are now with social media, it's even, people are accessible and people want to help. So Valerie put in the comments here, women helping women. There are so many of us out there who have gone through our personal struggles to get where we are. And I think everyone on this panel recognizes that we wouldn't be where we are without the help of others. So asking yourself that question, how do I? And then putting yourself out there enough to identify somebody who's a couple steps ahead of you and where you want to be, whatever that may be. Whether it's a CTO or someone in the private sector or even outside of 911. I hate to say that, don't come at me, but you have to protect yourself, right? So identifying what that looks like, if we can see it, we can be it, right? So identifying what that looks like, who's doing that, and can you reach out to that person? Can you shoot somebody a LinkedIn message? I will encourage everyone in 911 to be on LinkedIn. It's like, you have to. And I had a mentor of mine mention that she got a new mentor because this young woman reached out. She made it a goal. I'm going to reach out to 10 people I admire on LinkedIn. It's going to be a couple sentences like, do you want to have coffee? Or it may look like, hey, will you meet with me on Zoom for 30 minutes? Here's what I want to talk about. And just, sent 10 messages and got, didn't get a reply from everybody, but got replies. So I think step one is knowing that it's possible, and then reaching out to people you admire or who have done it, who can then help you identify what those next steps are, because it is just a series of tiny, courageous baby steps, like our whole careers, our lives, as we learn and we grow. So it's just important that you take that leap of faith.
I love that. I love that. And Lynne, now continuing with you, talk about, please, how do, Sara offered her viewpoint, how do women get in touch and find, like, how can I be my own hero? And if you would address as well, why do you think it's important, mentorship, female mentorship, finding that as well?
Yeah, I think mentorship and representation go hand in hand, right? You have to, Sara, you said something that I think about all the time, which is it's hard to be what you can't see. And so that sort of sums up representation, that you need to see versions of yourself or in where you want to go. So I'm on the software side. So if we're, it's technology, software engineering, STEM, right? We're just trying to get females in the door, like in entry level positions. We're not even trying to get them into leadership. We're just trying to get like a pipeline and a funnel of young women that are interested in these careers. So my challenge is a little different, but when I look at 911 specifically, I think what frustrates me is there are a lot of women who have chosen this industry and this path for themselves, but then when you get into the leadership position, there's this massive drop off of representation from women, which I really think is a bigger problem than what I face with just trying to get girls into like STEM, right? Because I think that cliff at the leadership level. So we call that in our industry, not the glass ceiling, we call it the broken rung. So the broken rung is the first step from an entry level position into the first supervisor, manager, right? The next rung. And unless you can solve for the broken rung, who gives a crap about the glass ceiling? Because women can't get to the top if they can't get off the ground, right? I think there's some stats that I'll give you one stat that drives me crazy. So recent data shows for every 100 men promoted from an entry level to a position, only 87 women get that, and only 82 women of color promoted. So it's a huge disparity if you think about it. And they did some research, and this was in the private sector. I'm sure it's worse in the public sector. That there's only been a 3% increase in total women in manager positions between 2017 and 2022. So we're not making a lot of progress very quickly here. And so you think about, okay, how do I solve that, right? Because Sara, you mentioned nobody's going to pluck you out and elevate you, right? So how do we solve this for ourselves? And I think it does come back to mentorship, but this may be a little controversial. I think that mentorship needs to occur not between some rock star female leader that you've identified and you wherever you are in your career. Like, it needs to happen. Representation needs to happen at every rung of the ladder, right? So if you have managed to go from an entry level position to your first supervisor position, you're a mentor. If you went from the private sector to the public sector, the public sector to the private sector, there are other women that want to do that. You're a mentor, right? If you've left the workforce because you had babies and you spent a couple of years out and then you re-entered the workforce, you're a mentor. Like, so I think we can't, I think as women, we can't just keep on thinking of mentorship as the place, the ultimate place, because there's not enough of us up there. Nobody can spread themselves too thin. And I also think we're selling ourselves short if we think that we don't have something to give to women with us, right? That are just maybe just one step away from where we've managed to be. So I don't know. I just think sharing sort of wisdom and experience and advice, connection, references, like all the stuff that we have to share at every level of our career path, that's how we change the representation problem ourselves.
Well, you have me on board, because the way you explain that, I love it. The idea of that's empowering, that you can provide wisdom and insight at every level and every rung. So it's not, like you said, the ultimate goal of, oh, now I'm mentor worthy. I love that. And so, Sandy, what do you say? How do you say about, again, bringing women and bringing them to that level where you're at now? Like, you have that awareness of, this is what makes me a hero. How do you help impart to them to find what makes them a hero? And if you would address as well where your viewpoint on mentorship and developing that.
Like I said, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have wonderful mentors along the way. Before I got on this call this morning, I texted my number one and sent her a note and said, I've been thinking a lot about you because of this. And in so many ways, guys, I mean, the simplest stuff. And this is silly, but it matters. I did not start out in a leadership role. I called myself the Coke and Cookie girl, right? We had job fairs. I put out the Coke and Cookie, and that was what I did. And, somebody saw something in me and reached back, right? That's what matters, is somebody reached back to pull me forward. Because Keely posted, Lynn, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when we met. Men apply for a job when they only meet 60% of the qualifications, but women feel like they need to be at 100%, right? And that stuck with me too, because we don't, for whatever reason, cultural reasons, centuries of being taught that we have responsibilities that don't necessarily mean that we're going to be in leadership roles, whether that's in our communities or in our jobs. But those leadership roles are family traditionally, right? And that's the one that we've genetically feel most qualified for. So if someone hadn't reached back to me to say, hey, let's take it to the next level, you've got something more. And even this is the silly part that you may think is, how is that relevant? Hand-me-down clothes that were business clothes, because I didn't even know enough to dress myself, right?
Wow.
Same.
I grew up in a very rural community and I had no idea, right? I just
Right.
bought what I liked. It wasn't necessarily the clothes that dress for the job you want. Right?
Mhm.
I wasn't dressing for that job. I was dressing because I had a job. And my mentor gave me some beautiful hand-me-down clothes. And even today, I told her, I'm wearing some pants you gave me because she's here in my heart, right? It's that simple, right? It's not, there is, don't be afraid to ask, right, for somebody to be your mentor. Sara, like you were talking about, go on LinkedIn and say, hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee? But on the flip side of that, it's our responsibility to reach and say, can I? Are you open to? Would you be willing? Look for that spark in someone and ignite it.
Yes.
Right?
Gosh, yes. That was perfect. You hit on so much, and I wanted to kind of reiterate, as we go, and this is kind of something that Lynn said as well. As we go through our career, we even kind of forget sometimes what the entry level women are facing and needing today.
Oh.
It's been 18 years since I was entry level, and wow, I could certainly mentor someone who's entry level. I probably couldn't do it as well as someone who's like 5 years in the job and has broken that rung, right? Because things are different, right? They change, and that's important. And I think that if we are women who have overcome something and you don't have a mentee, like, let that be your takeaway today. Like, go pluck someone and light their spark. Sandy, yes.
I love it. That is a takeaway for me. And even when you mentioned about the hand-me-down clothes, that just got me, because it sounds simple, but it's so true. How how do I interview for this job? How do I even dress for this job? So I love that. All of those gestures and just let me loan you a blazer. Let me give you a blazer. That was powerful.
It's so true. Because, like, if you are, like, I graduated college in 05, started working at an office that was business professional a month later, like, there wasn't any, like, I don't know. That didn't, there wasn't a woman in the office to be like, oh, Sara, like, cover that up or whatever, whatever, what have you. We won't go into that. But yeah, it's, all that, it's the whole package, how we present ourselves.
Can I add one thing I was thinking of, Sandy, when you said this, which I think is so important? Sara, somebody in 911 on the Facebook page this morning reposted something that I'd read yesterday, and it just like hit me right in the gut, that said, pretty is not the rent you pay to exist in the world as a woman. Yes. I also think assertive is not the rent you need to pay to get ahead. And I think this speaks to exactly what Sandy said, which is you want to find a spark in someone. But at the same time, not everybody is going to be some super proactive extrovert, going to get into your LinkedIn DMs, going to, guys, if you see me at a conference, I'm in the corner, like not not everybody has that personality. And so to expect that like initiative and proactivity and vulnerability is a rent that somebody needs to pay to get ahead in their career is not fair either. So I think it is our responsibility to look down into our organizations and say, this person has potential. Maybe they haven't approached me because that's not what they do, but I see potential there, and I should reach out and have a coffee or have a conversation. So I love that, the whole reaching back concept, as opposed to kind of sitting and waiting for somebody to approach you, I think is super important.
I love that. And kind of on continuing on that, the notion of the mindset and reframing our mindset. So this happens to be a panel of all of you leaders who, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression didn't just sit around. Yes, you had, mentioned having mentors and people that invested in you. But I believe at some point, you all went from just sitting around waiting for someone to give you a seat at the table, and you started to build your own seat or build your own table. So I kind of want to hear, starting with you, Sara, an example of how you kind of built your own seat, built your own table, started paving your own way. And yes, probably did get the invites to those other tables, but already started building and investing in yourself so other women out there can learn from you.
Yes, this is super important because I think a lot of people will be like, hey, I gave her a seat at the table, and pat themselves on the back and be like, I've done my job. Like, I invited her. So here she is, and good luck. So I was very fortunate. I got an invitation. There was one, I worked with one man who was just so supportive, and he called me a leader long before I saw that in myself. And words are important. We talk about that too. So how you refer to people and how you encourage them is very important. And he publicly called me a leader. And I took that in. I didn't, how often we push compliments away, like, no, not me. I took that in because that's something I wanted to be, right? I didn't feel like I was, but something I wanted to be. And that empowered me to speak at said table, which is so scary, isn't it? Like, I'm going to say something stupid. Everyone's going to think my ideas are dumb, like that. But, having the courage to sound stupid sometimes, which I'm sure I did, and giving yourself that grace to say, okay, maybe someone else has done this before. Maybe someone's thought of this before, but not framing your question as this might be a stupid question, but really, sitting there and just having some sort of conversation at that table. And when we say table, means different things to different people. Like mine was literally a board table, but it could be just like in a conversation with your peers. It could be conversation with your boss. It could be anything. And unfortunately, those opportunities don't come around as often as they should. So I guess doing the hard thing and putting yourself out there is something that really helped me. And it was scary, so freaking scary. It still is, really. If I'm being honest, it still scares me. But just doing that when the opportunity presents itself is important. And telling yourself those things like, I am a leader, I have something important to say. Unfortunately, I don't think men have to do that quite as often as we do. But whatever gets you there. I don't really love the whole fake it till you make it thing. I love the believe that you are until you are. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. And Lynne, addressing that same thing. So if you get that invite to that table, that's great, right? But address that as well for me, not shifting that mindset from just, okay, I got a seat at the table, or when will they ever make room at the table for me, to what does it mean when you start to build your own table or build your own seat? What does that do for you professionally and personally?
Yeah. So I love the concept. I mean, this sort of swept social media, a couple of years ago. This whole concept of we're waiting to be invited to the boardroom, we're waiting for equality and equity, and screw that. Let's just make our own tables. Love the concept. There's a part of me that's just like it. We touched on privilege earlier in this call, like a little privileged, right? Because there are people that are are like, sorry, my circumstances are not going to allow me to run off and build my own business or and so you got to take it with a little grain of salt. I think. So I tend to think about it as the mindset is a great idea. Even if you don't end up building your table, we'll just take this analogy way too far, on ladders, tables, all sorts of things today. But like one nail at a time, one board at a time, right? So it's just, what are the simple steps that you can take in your own life to be proactive? Because that's all it means, is instead of waiting for something, you're taking action on behalf of yourself to propel yourself forward in small ways, so that eventually, if you're going to make a table, that's fine. If you're going to join somebody else's table, that's fine, whatever, but you're moving forward. So this is sort of the category of things where I think, like, speaking up, Sarah, to what you just said, taking a training class, get a new skill, attend a conference, network, volunteer, side hustle. Like, there's so many like small things that you can do, kind of except for exercise, because I'm never going to be that self-disciplined. But sure. So have you noticed I've never signed up for your 5K, Sarah? There's a reason. But Sandy's like, me neither. Yeah. So, but it is about just like, what is the next right thing? That's a whole Glennon thing.
Yes.
It's like, what is the next little thing that I do? What's the micro decision that I make that moves me forward? And I think if we concentrate on the table, we'll never get started, because it's huge and daunting and sometimes impossible. I think it's the next right thing, and I think you do that enough times, and the mindset, it comes with it.
I love that. Progress is progress is progress.
Oh yeah, I'm not broke. No, I'm not. No. So
Valerie commented that the goal is to get Lynne to sign up for the 2024 5K.
I actually, I got a under the desk treadmill, and I actually did a 5K, I think a couple years, but it literally took like 4 days. So
you have 4 days to do this 5K.
That should count, Lynne. That should count.
It does count.
And
it's
Sandy,
okay.
What do you say on that, man? What do you say talking about building, not even if the mindset of not building towards the table, but building just towards yourself, personally and professionally, and that step by step? What is your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I mean, so pull it back just a little bit further, right? To building on what Lynn said. Yeah, first you have to know what table you want to be at, right? That's the hardest decision that we will ever make is before you build a table, before you even think about that table and measuring it and the dimensions, which one do you want to be at, right? And I think it's important that we say it's okay if it's not a boardroom table, right? It is certainly okay if that's not the table you want to be at. If the table you want to be at is family, then that should be your table. And that's the one you need to concentrate on building and focusing on and finding the path to get there. Everybody's table is different. My table is very different than I think about my sister and her table, right? She's been at a company and been in the same job working on a lineman's crew with the energy company for 30 years. She didn't want anything else. She stepped up to bigger supervisor leadership roles, and she's like, you know what? That's not my jam. I want to be on the front line with my guys. And that's where she is. She built her table completely outside of her work world. She built her table around being a person of faith with her community. And that's where she focuses her energy and her time. That's her table. She built it, right?
That's right.
What table do you want to be at? That's a really hard question to answer. And when you figure that out, then you can start working on it. But I'm afraid to say how old I was when I went back to college, right? I certainly didn't go as an 18-year-old straight out of school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was having a lot of fun and doing some crazy, cool things that I wanted to do the rest of my life. And my mother said, you know what, you probably need to get a real job. And so I did, right? So I wore a headset, but a different kind, in a medical facility, answering the phone for 5 years as a receptionist. And I went to school at night. And then that's when I said, okay, now what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I still didn't know after 5 years of night school and graduating. And I stumbled into furniture, and I have no regrets. So it's not always that clear. So, don't beat yourself up if you don't know where your table is. It's okay. Sometimes the table finds you.
Yes.
I am also a college dropout. I went for a hot minute and decided it wasn't for me, and then I went straight into the workforce, worked for years, and then decided to go back.
Yeah.
And get a degree at night, and I ended up doing psychology instead of business, even though I was in business. But if y'all want to get into leadership, get a psychology degree.
Oh, that could be useful. Yeah, I can see that.
There is no one path and no one table, and yeah, I totally agree.
Yes, I heard someone speak recently and talk about curiosity and getting curious about yourself. And I don't think we think about ourselves all that much as women, to be honest. We do the thing, get up, like my life, right? I get up, I get the kids to bed, I go to work, get the kids from school, do the sports, get the kids ready for bed, cook, clean, go back to bed. We fall into this, whatever it may be. Go to work, come home, watch Netflix, go to work, come home, watch Netflix, whatever it may be. And, we don't think so much about what do I want my table to look like? What do I want to do? And, I still don't really know. I still don't really know what I want to be when I grow up. So, I think a lot of us are there, and that's okay. Some people know, and that's great. But, we're always a work in progress. And if you're not curious, if you're not thinking, I remember about a year ago, I got COVID, and I was in bed for a week, and I don't remember the last time I was in bed for a week. It might've been in high school. And I remember having time to think, and it was like, even though I was sick, right, there was quiet and there was peace. And, I thought a lot about what I wanted to do. And, I think whether if you start journaling or you keep journaling or, I think we need some time with ourselves as women to really think about where we are and where we want to go before we can start to even construct a table. Is this great, Sandy, talking about all the furniture jargon for you?
It better be ergonomic. It has to be ergonomic.
Yes. I don't know what table I'm at, but I want an ergonomic chair. That's all I
Oh, so we're going to go out of order quickly here because I believe it was you, Lynne, that mentioned when we was getting this together, talking about the door analogy. Am I correct? Is you?
We've abandoned the door analogy.
We can talk. It's a funny story. If anybody else that is anywhere close to my age knows that you read something and then you promptly forget it. So we were talking earlier when we were kind of prepping for this call that I had this fantastic analogy and then I like searched for 20 minutes for it yesterday. I couldn't find it. But the gist of it, I believe, I'm going to tell it terribly. I'm not going to attribute it to the actual original author, is that I think as women, a lot of times we approach a door, we attempt to open it. The first attempt doesn't work. And we immediately think, oh, it's my, like, I don't know how to open this door. There's something wrong with me because I can't open this door. Right. And the story goes on to say that in a lot of those situations, either the door swings the other direction or the door is locked. But instead of just being like, is the door locked or does it swing out instead of in? We immediately go to, or other people tell us, right? Oh, you just don't know how to open that door. Right. And that was very, that hopefully I got it right. And if you guys all find it, post it. But that really resonated for me because I think it speaks to just imposter syndrome. It speaks to just lacking our own self-confidence about our abilities. That the first place we go is oh, there must be something wrong with me, as opposed to there must be something wrong with the constructs of this, the situation that I'm in, or the people that I'm engaging with, or the systems that have been in place for decades that are kind of holding me back. So I would just, as a general rule, I think take a beat every time you run into I was going to say brick wall, but now we're talking about doors. Take a beat and just say, is it me or is it the door? Because a lot of times it's the door, and then figure out another way to kind of get around it.
Yes, that's that. Sara, what is your thoughts on that? Because I know when we talked about that door analogy has stuck with me since, and it really is at the root of imposter syndrome. I know we use it and we talk about it, but it can't be talked about enough how much we gaslight ourselves, and it's true, we're more inclined to blame ourselves than to think it's the door. So yes, what is your thoughts on that as well? Imposter syndrome, living with that, and the door that we're always running.
Yeah. Sometimes I have to stop and look at myself from someone else's perspective. And what I mean by that is, like, if I see Sam running into a door, I just got that picture in my head. Sorry. If I see Sam running into a door, I'm not going to be like, why doesn't Sam know how to open that door? I'm going to be like, oh, that door's locked, Sam. What are you doing? So when we make a mistake, which mistakes are vital to our growth, vital. But if we make a mistake and the first thing we do is, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why am I so stupid? I shouldn't be doing this. This is not my thing. What am I doing? The spiral, I call it the spiral because that's what I do often. And I have to stop and be like, wait, that's me. Like if someone else made this mistake, I would be like, oh, hey girl, next time, blah, blah, blah. And like, here, try it again, So that's kind of been my mechanism because I've been like that my entire life. And it does zero good. It does no good to sit there and be like, I'm such an idiot. I can't open this door. Like zero. So I think the first thing is identifying that you're doing it is the first step. And then trying to figure out what works for you in terms of self-talk, because it's up to us to pull ourselves out of that at that point.
I agree. And I too am guilty of not giving myself grace. But it's easy to give others grace. Like I would in a heartbeat, like, oh, it's not you, girl. Trust me, it's that door. It's the doorknob, whatever. And Sandy, what is your thoughts as well, ma'am, on that of imposter syndrome and gaslighting, and why don't we give ourselves grace?
So I have a funny story I'll share in just a second about really about doors, not an analogy, Lynne, but a real true experience with doors that's hilarious. But this one's tough, guys, because imposter syndrome is only when it's sort of trendy right now, right? People will say, I have imposter syndrome. It's become a social media sort of, it's okay. People want to be part of it because it's part of a community. So I encourage everyone to be careful in how you think about that, because we're not going to beat out generations of being taught that we aren't good enough as women, right? So we constantly, for me, it was magazines, because social media didn't exist coming up. I was never as skinny as they were. I wasn't as pretty as they were. And I didn't have Farrah Fawcett's hair, which made me a failure, right? That gives a slight indication of my age. So that's how we are brought up, women, still today, right? Oh, how pretty is that dress? And but boys, look how tall you've gotten. Oh my, you're so strong. So they're constantly validated. We're not going to breed this out for several more generations. It's getting better, but we're not there yet, right? I know that I grew up in the generation where we're special because we're girls, always. And so you've got to, this is where you can be your own hero, is get that out of your head. Get it out of your head, because you are good enough everywhere around. And this is why I know that. So I'm with 3 really wonderful gentlemen that I work with. One who actually designs the furniture that we build and engineers it. And I'm with them at an event in San Francisco, and we're getting ready to get in a Tesla to take us back to our hotel. And I went to open the door, and I could not figure out how to open the door, because there was no, I'm from the South. We have door handles. There's no door handle there. And I stepped back and I said, I don't know how to open this door. And so the lady who was driving us, she's like, I'll get them for you. And she walked around the car and opened all 4 doors. So we all piled in. And I'm the girl, right? So I'm in the back seat in the middle, because that's where we ride, right? That's where we ride, never shotgun. And so the boys are on the perimeter of the car, and we get to the hotel, and she's like, okay, guys, we'll see you in the morning. I'll be by here about 9 o'clock to pick you up. And no one gets out of the car because they couldn't figure out how to open the door. So you're just as good as they are, right? Just as good every second of the day. Only I was willing to admit it.
That's awesome. That is so
And
good.
we need to admit it. We do.
We just get some cars. I mean, that's a door problem. That's not our problem. We need to. The other thing I want to add about imposter syndrome, which really helps me, is I read somewhere, again unattributed, that imposter syndrome is just you having leveled up without noticing.
Oh,
right? Like, so if you think about it, like, I don't play video games, but if you think about it, like, you got to the next level, maybe you weren't like super conscious at the time, and it's just your brain catching up with the fact that you leveled up. Focus on the leveling up part, not the part that you're not worthy or that you're not ready, because you wouldn't have leveled up unless you had conquered what's behind you. So I think when it does creep in for me, I remind myself, like, okay, this isn't a disconnect between my talent and my position. This is a disconnect between that I advanced, and cognitively I'm just catching up to where I am. And that's been really helpful for me.
so good.
Yeah.
You ate the mushroom.
Yeah.
That's a Mario. Sorry, that's a Mario reference.
Not really. I mean,
I just saw that movie with my kids. I'm sorry. Valerie, out in the comments, we need a graphic about leveling up and your brain catching up. Just put it out there, okay? Because we need to capture that and hang on to that. That's so good. I'd not heard that before.
That is so. And I just want to, Kimber here, she quoted Brene Brown, and Brene Brown has my heart. As she says, vulnerability is the last thing I want you to see in me, but the first thing I look for in you.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
true.
Mhm.
Leveling up really is hard. It really is hard. Oh my gosh. So we've touched on mentorship. We have touched on the mindset. We're clear we've got to have community, right? It's important to have a community. I mean, that's what 911 Women is all about, right? It's a community of that. It's empowering people. So 20 years ago, we didn't have the Glennon Doyles. We didn't have the Sheryl Sandbergs, right? Women's empowerment is here, it's out, it's accepted. But where do we go from here? Where do we go from here, y'all? Sara, where do we go? And how do we make sure that we're facilitating access or pointing our women in the direction, our heroes, our leaders in the direction to continue empowering themselves? The resources, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think it helps to acknowledge that we have made progress because that always helps to make further progress. I do believe we are blazing a trail. I do believe we've had incredible women who have come before us. And since we're talking about women in 911, we have to mention Mary Boyd because we were just talking about her before. We've had women who inspire us, and think about what that's done for you and how you can take the reins now. It's your turn. It's our turn. And to take what we've learned and reach back behind us and bring other people with us. That's how we grow. It's more shoulder to shoulder. It's not even like arm to arm anymore. We need each other. And when we band together, like we have in 911 Wonder Woman, we're that much stronger when we can lean on each other, but still move forward. That's what I mean, like the shoulder to shoulder. And what that means is mentorship and support and encouragement. And, whatever that looks like for you in the situation that you are in, whether it be in the center, in an office, as a mother. One of the things you said, Lynne, is I think if you are in the workforce and you've had a child and you've come back to work, you're a mentor to all those other women who, one, don't think it's possible, two, are struggling. It's hard, right? So anything that you've done, you have knowledge to share, and start sharing it, whether you speak in a panel, whether you speak at a conference, whether you speak at your center, using your voice to speak up for something you believe in. All those little tiny things are so freaking important. They're so important. Don't think they're not.
True. And Lynne, touching on community.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of resources. How do we continue to create access, help to create access, and help to point women to the resources and where to go to for themselves?
I think if I think about sort of the common thread between like Glennon or Brene or Hatmaker or just all of the people, it's the tipping point was when they created a community. You got your pod squad, you got your TED Talks, you got your, they put out words into the universe, but until they cultivated a community of people around them, of like-minded people, and then they handed off, they still give content and resources and cues and all that sort of stuff, but their community grew around and almost separate from them. Bramley, if you're into Brandy Carlisle. Anyway, that is the commonality. It's all these communities that become offshoots of a female leader. It's not a cult, but they become sort of a living organism. I think about that a lot with the, we talk about building the table. I think that what Sara's created, which is a community of women bonded by a common thread in one industry, yes, all the resources, all the content, all the programming. My favorite part about this community, though, is watching women sort of motivate and challenge. Like when somebody posts on our website, on your Facebook page, that like you can tell they've been gaslit to hell, and they're like, "This is happening to me, and this is how I feel, and am I crazy?" and blah blah blah. And you see women running towards this woman being like, "No, you're not crazy. You're right. Like, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Here's some advice about how to handle it, blah, blah, blah." I would never say this about anything on Facebook, but if we could take that virtual experience and translate it into my office, Sandy's office, our ECCs, our PSAPs, our churches, our communities, our schools. Like if we could take that community and translate it into the real world, like we would be unstoppable. We would fix all the things very, very quickly, I think. So I don't know. I think we just have to keep on participating and fostering those communities. I think it's the key.
I love that. I love that. Sandy, what is your thoughts? Community, we need it. How do we keep facilitating it and facilitating those resources so we keep growing? Because we've made a lot of progress, but we've got to keep that movement and that momentum going. So what are your thoughts, ma'am?
You know, Sam, we have made a ton of progress, but we can't overlook the fact that the pandemic took a lot of that progress away from us, right? And because I'm in the world of build furniture for places where people work and all kinds of jobs. Over 1 million women disappeared from the workforce in 2020 and 2021, right? And we know the pandemic wasn't even over then, right? We were still in the throes of it. Those are 1 million women who aren't coming back. They aren't looking for unemployment. They aren't currently seeking jobs. They left because it got really hard, right? It was hard to take care of your children at home and be the person that you needed to be for your personal community as well as give to work, right? And so we've lost some traction as women, and we need to rebuild those resources so women coming up like Lynne and I did have the support that they need, and building that community by what the work that Sara and you, Sam, are doing. We need to amplify that. That's our responsibility, right? And I'm honored to be part of this because I'm bringing a community that doesn't know what you're doing into the fold. And so that contribution, right? Little steps, giving an hour of time that makes you slightly uncomfortable, right? Is to help say that women, we have a responsibility to one another, to be that resource in our community. So that, don't stop, Sara, keep doing what you're doing. Fantastic. You too, Sam. And Lynne, right? We're all carrying the torch.
And that brings me back to kind of what we're talking about at the beginning. Like it takes all of us, like all of the companies that support us and what we're doing, everyone who volunteers their time. Like, yes, you all gave an hour today, but you gave so much more than an hour. You know, we did prep work. You thought about what you were going to say. And that's really, really important to point out. It takes everybody, and by opening one little, again with the door, by opening one little door and letting some more people in and letting them know what we're about, it just makes a world of difference. And we're so thankful that we had you all here today, and we'll certainly continue the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great.
Thank you. And if I could just get final takeaway, I mean, there's so many takeaways, y'all. You can see from the notes and the interactions, but final takeaway, Lynne, what do you got to end it up with?
I think I'm going into furniture. I'm at least going furniture. No, I appreciate, we sit on the outside. We call ourselves 911 adjacent. So I appreciate the ability to join the cool kids for an hour. We love you guys so much. And I often tell people that I work in an industry and I serve people whose job I could never do myself. And so that's my takeaway, is just, you're so appreciated, so loved. And you have a lot of women and men out here adjacent to you that are just trying to make your jobs a little bit easier. So thank you.
And we're thankful for y'all as well. Sandy, final words, ma'am.
I left it all on the table, Sam. I got nothing left for you.
Saw that. You threw it all down.
I'm grateful. Number one, I'll thank Alexandra, who's on my team, a new powerful female on my team that's leading our marketing efforts, that found Sara and found 911 Wonder Woman and allowed me to be part of this, right? So a shout out to another woman that made this possible for me, because it wouldn't have happened. So I'm grateful, and the hope today made some new connections and new friends, and yeah, I'm building a new community.
Yes. We're so happy to have you, Sandy and Alexandra. You are incredible. And yes, thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you for everyone who's part of this community. And if you enjoyed our panel, please share it. Please share our YouTube channel and our podcast. And if you have any questions, the 911 Wonder Woman Facebook page is always there for you. That's what I got, Sam.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Amazing panel. Join us again. Thank you all for joining us for this special edition. Y'all take care.
Thank you.